Ha ha ha! Her stepmother Adugo laughed wickedly. Now that your face and body are disfigured, let us see how the prince who still chose you as his betrothed. My daughter Adigo has always been the chosen one, and she will remain so. Uloma ran swiftly to the river to cool off her burns, followed immediately by Adugo, her stepmother, who pushed her into the river to drown her and take away her life. But what happened after she came out of that river is a story that Achala will whisper for centuries. Before we get into this video, if this is the kind of content you like, please subscribe to this channel and like this video as it helps us to push out more interesting and intriguing videos every week. Let me take you back, because there is no story without a beginning, and no one pushes another for nothing. Uloma was the most beautiful girl in Achala. Not just an outer beauty that sits on the face, but an inner beauty that radiates in character, the kind that made old women to smile at her when she passed, and the kids to follow her and hold on to her wrapper. Young girls wanted to be like Uloma when they grew up, and mothers used her as an example to their granddaughters. She was born to Ego, the most beautiful and kind young girl in Achala back in the day, and her father's name was Okenta. Uloma was the only child from his first wife, Ego. Okenta was the greatest hunter Achala had ever produced. They said he could strike a deer from 30 long steps away without blinking. When Okenta entered the forest, animals prayed. He was that skilled. Now, before Uloma came, and before tears and wickedness entered Okenta's household, there was love, a deep love. Okenta met Ego when they were both young. Ego was also the most beautiful girl in Achala village back in the day. But more than that, her heart was gentle. People felt safe around Ego. When Okenta first saw her carrying a calabash of water on his head, he said, "Is this how beauty works in human form?" And then he approached her and made his intentions to marry her known, which kick-started a loving and envy-inducing love story. Okenta brought Ego all sorts of bushmeat. He brought pepper soup, sometimes once a day, or even sometimes morning and evening, twice in a day. People would laugh and say, "Okenta, are you feeding a whole community or one woman?" And he will answer, "I am feeding my future." But Ego had a best friend. Her name was Adugo. Ego did not know that Adugo's smile was borrowed. She did not know that Adugo only stood close so that good fortune could rub on her. Ego shared everything with Adugo. Wrappers, beads, everything. And Adugo swallowed it all, but was still not satisfied. She wanted more. She wanted everything that Ego had. She emulated Ego in everything, from hairstyle to dressing. She wanted to be Ego so badly, but also she secretly hated Ego. It was even whispered that Adugo once destroyed another girl's life just to become Ego's only friend. Yes, even as a young woman, Adugo's hands were already dirty. Finally, Okenta gathered his people to come for Ego's bride price and their marriage rites. Adugo's heart cracked like dry firewood. She was green with envy and jealousy, and a secret hurt, because the truth was that Adugo was secretly in love with Okenta. She had loved him from a very young age, but unluckily for her, Okenta never looked her way. No, not even for a brief second. Adugo said to herself, "So I will watch Ego marry the man I love? She already has everything. I will not allow her to have this as well. No!" She wrapped her clothes tightly that night and walked deep into the dark forest to her grandmother, the woman the village had banished for her evil ways, the woman who spoke to spirits. She had become too obsessed with the evil spirits she conjured. A known evil. The mention of her name caused people to tremble in fear. When Adugo arrived at the hut, shaking and angry, the old woman laughed. "Blood does not forget blood," she said. Adugo knelt. "Nne, I want him. Please cast a spell that will make Okenta mine." The woman said, "Cast a spell? Then why are you a woman?" "You will seduce him, my child," she said. She brought out a small dark bottle and gave to Adugo. "Put this in his food, and when he is unaware, lie with him and make him yours." Adugo collected the potion from the old woman, Go, my child, the woman said, laughing in an evil manner. The next day, Okenta came to Ego's hut, only to meet Adugo there. Where is Ego? He asked. Adugo responded. She went to buy marriage beads for her ceremony. You know how she wants to shine for you. Okenta's chest full of pride. He laughed. But then he asked, You are her best friend. Why are you not with her? Adugo immediately lowered her face. I went to visit my late mother's sick friend. A lie. A clean lie. She brought out a cup of water. And Okenta entered. He drank from the cup of water. And sorrow quietly entered his destiny from that day forward. The wedding day came quickly enough. And on the wedding day, Achala was bubbling. Drums, goats, palm wine, women danced. Everybody was happy. Achala's golden girl was finally getting married. But then, Adogo walked into the open square like a dark cloud, her wrapper tight on her chest, her face hard, and she screamed to anyone that would listen, I am pregnant for Okenta. Ah! A scream cut through the village. The men stood up. Women covered their mouths. Some whispered, You can know a child by her mother. Another said, She is the granddaughter of a witch. This is how their blood behaves. But tradition did not listen to gossips or trickery. Okenta was forced. That same day, two best friends became co-wives. Ego cried bitterly. She cried like someone whose soul had cracked, the kind of crying that enters the bones. But Okenta kept saying, I did not know when. I do not remember. But memory had already been stolen from him, and the deed had already been done. All was left was to seek the forgiveness of his love. Months passed, and because Ego's heart was clean, she forgave Okenta. She chose peace. But Adugo, that woman was not made of peace. She turned the compound into a battlefield. Every smile from Ego angered her. Every laughter offended her. Every breath of happiness disturbed her sleep. Months of endless quarrel ensued. Adugo was always out to ruffle Ego's feathers. Ego, being the kind heart that she was, she never retaliated, always crying to her loving husband. And then, Adugo gave birth first to a baby girl, and she named her Adego. The child came crying with sharp eyes. People said jokingly, This one has come with her mother's temper, and how right they were. Some months later, Ego became pregnant as well, and that was when Adugo lost her senses completely, because now all of Okenta's attention turned to Ego even more. He followed her around. Have you eaten? Is your waist paining you? Do you need warm water? Adugo watched, burning with red-hot anger and a boiling envy, and hatred grew fat in her chest. Ego gave birth to a child, a girl, a quiet and most peaceful and beautiful baby, with very long lashes, a strange calmness around her, and they named her Uloma. But Ego did not stay long on this earth after childbirth. She began to grow weak. The herbalists could not point out exactly what was wrong with her. She began to cough, long harrowing coughs that left her weak and tired. She began to emaciate, and one evening, she held Uloma and whispered to Okenta, Please protect her for me, even when I am not here. Do not speak in this manner, my love. You will be fine in no time, Okenta responded, his eyes filled with tears. But before the sun rose the next day, Ego joined her ancestors. From that day, Uloma's life changed. At first, Adugo pretended. She cooked and smiled and tried to play with Uloma. My daughter, she would always say. But even all of that could not gain her Okenta's love. And then the marks fell. Uloma, come here! Come here! Wash this plate again. Why are you slow like a wounded goat? Adugo, my child, sit down. You will stain your hands. All of this maltreatment shaped the life of Uloma. Uloma grew up, but she always grew thin. But her beauty, it only grew brighter. And that was Adugo's true bitterness. Because as the years passed, Uloma became a photocopy of her late mother Ego. Everyone loved her, just like they did her mother. and even in her suffering and maltreatment, she glowed like the moon. Then the prince of Achala community was said to be choosing a bride, and that was when it all began to go downhill. Women began to whisper, "Have you seen Uloma?" Others said, "She is the undisputed champion. That girl is a full package deal." Adugo heard. Adego also heard. And envy brewed like spoiled palm wine. And then they began to plot. At first, they tried to paint seeds of doubt in the village of Uloma's purity. But everyone who heard the rumors immediately disregarded it. "That girl walks like a donkey. Where will she see the time to go and lay with a man?" one woman said at the river bank, causing everyone to laugh. Adego was nearby and heard this. She quickly rushed to give her mother the news. Then they also tried to paint Uloma as a thief, but the rumors held no weight either. Then, one late evening, Adego cunningly threw a pot of hot soup on Uloma, burning her heavily, while Adugo stood nearby, laughing. Uloma screamed, rushing off to the nearby river to cool off her burns. Adugo followed her immediately, both of them taunting her. "Clumsy girl." Uloma's arm blistered. Her shoulders were scarred. Her face was affected. Adugo and her daughter followed her to the river, and when they saw that no one was around, they pushed her into the river, both of them knowing she couldn't swim. The river swallowed Uloma, cold, heavy, and silent. But listen and listen well. Rivers in Igbo land do not only carry water, they carry beings, and they carry promises. Uloma sank. Her breath left her body, and in that dark place under the water, a light opened, and a man stood there, tall, regal, clothed in a white garment, a crown on his head. His voice moved like flowing oil. "My child," he said, "what have they done to you?" Uloma wanted to speak, but water filled her mouth. The man touched her scars, he touched her arm, and he touched her face. And then he said to Uloma, "Go back, it is not yet your time." When Uloma rose out of the river of Achala, it was something else. If Uloma had been beautiful before, now she was ethereal. Her skin did not only glow, it shimmered like moonlight had learned to live on human flesh. Her eyes were no longer ordinary eyes. They became a deep and clear amber, like the surface of quiet gems. Her hair grew longer, longer than it had ever been, black, thick, and heavy, shining like fresh palm oil under the sun, and the scars on her body were gone. Not even memory remained. It was as if the river had washed pain from Uloma's skin. The fishermen who stood on the bank froze. One dropped his net, and another whispered, "Is she a spirit that forgot her way back to the water?" Uloma only wrapped her wet clothes tightly around herself and began to walk back to her father's house. But note, Uloma did not fall into the river by accident that evening. No, that night was supposed to be the night of the great royal dance, the night the prince would choose a maiden from Achala to be his queen. Drums had already started speaking since afternoon, women plaiting one another's hair, young girls tying beads around their ankles and waist. And Uloma, luck had not been on her side throughout the day, it seemed. But that was about to change. Uloma quickly walked into her father's house and changed into her best outfit, heading out again. She went straight to the village square, and on getting there, she stuck to the back, dancing alongside with other maidens. Immediately the prince of Achala saw Uloma. He quickly alighted from his royal carriage and walked up to the maidens. Adego, on seeing the king, thought he was coming for her. She stretched out her hand proudly for the king to grab it. But the prince, not even noticing her, passed her by on his way to his target, causing the maidens around her to laugh her to scorn. "What a proud and stupid girl," one said, causing another round of laughter. The prince stopped in front of Uloma. Uloma bowed. The drum softened, the air tightened, and then the prince lifted his hand and placed on her wrist the royal gift, a slim gold band engraved with the mark of the house of the king of Achala. People gasped because tradition said, after the gift, the maiden may ask for one thing and one thing only: The prince spoke gently to Uloma. What do you ask of me, daughter of Achala? Uloma lifted her head. Her voice did not shake. My lord, I ask for justice. A murmur rushed through the square. Justice? And then Uloma pointed, not dramatically, but quietly, at Adego and Adugo. My stepmother and her daughter, she said, they have beaten me. They have stabbed me all my life. They burned my body. But tonight, they tried to kill me. Immediately, the guards moved. Before Adugo could shout, hands grabbed at her and her daughter, Adego. Adego screamed. People murmured, but the prince raised his hand. Bring them forward, he said. They were dragged into the center of the square. Dust rose. Adugo fought like a wounded animal, but to no avail. The prince's voice hardened. Speak, woman. At first, Adugo spat insults. She cursed Uloma. She cursed Ego, her mother's name. She even cursed the prince. And then the guards, they struck her heavily and without mercy. Then her courage broke. She collapsed and the confessions began to pour out. Yes, I hated her mother. Ego, I took everything from her. I killed her and I poisoned her slowly. A scream tore through the woman. Okinta, standing at the back of the crowd, staggered. Adugo laughed manically. I killed her best friend to replace her. I wanted to be close to Ego. I wanted her life. I wanted to be her. Yes, I seduced her husband with witchcraft medicine. And I also killed everyone else that stood in my way. And yes, I also pushed the girl into the river tonight. You should have just died, she said. The square exploded in shock and in rage. And then the prince stood, the law standing with him. Adugo, you are guilty of murder, of witchcraft, and of destruction of household, and of attempted murder. He lifted his royal staff. You are hereby sentenced to death. Adugo's screams and wailing reached the sky, and he turned. Adego, you assisted in violence. You attempted murder. You are hereby banished from this kingdom and from all its lands and borders. And then the crowd erupted in jubilation. But the prince turned to Uloma and removed his royal chain. He placed it gently on her neck. From this night, you are chosen, not only as my bride, but as my queen. The square erupted once again in joy. Drums exploded. Women sang. Praise singers lost their voices. Okinta pushed forward, tears running down his face. My daughter, he cried to Uloma. Uloma ran to him and held him tightly. I am still your child, Papa. And truly, she was. Uloma married the prince of Achala kingdom, not because of magic, but because she survived evil and did not become it.